Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
We are going to give it just a second as people are jumping on. You can't see them, but people are jumping on right now. But welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to give it just a second as we have people jump on. But thanks for joining us tonight. We are recording. Love to see some of the familiar names and some new ones as well. Hi, Miss Melissa. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, how are you?
Great. I'm waiting for one more panelist.
Okay.
And we will be ready to go. So welcome, everybody. 6:30, we're going to give it just about a minute more as people are kind of transitioning from dinner and work and all that great stuff. We're happy to have you tonight. This is always, I think, one of my favorite presentations of the entire year, so I'm excited. So happy to have our real experts joining us.
Yay.
So CJ and Tiffany, you guys are the real experts.
Beth, I have one of the panelists on the chat saying she can't see herself. Candace?
She's not, I don't think one of the panelists. I'm looking for Vanessa as one of our panelists.
Oh, it says it's me, Vanessa. She's under Candace Hicks.
Okay, that's why. Hello, Miss Vanessa.
Hi, I have no idea who Candace Hicks is, so I don't know.
Oh, I know why, because I gave them the link. So let's rename you. So let me rename you.
Okay.
Now it makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
There we go.
There you
Okay.
Who am I?
No, I was like, oh, you're not one of our panelists.
No, that's me.
Okay, that's awesome. All right. So it's 6:32. Let's go ahead and start. Vanessa, I did put if you can look in the chat, it didn't come out quite the way I wanted, but I put the questions in there and I don't know if that's going to work for you, or if not, let me know. So welcome everybody. My name is Beth Burt. I am the Executive Director for the Autism Society, and yes, we will be recording this so you can watch it later. This is one of my all-time favorite presentations of the year, so I'm so excited to turn it over to our real experts. I'm gonna let Melissa introduce herself quickly.
Hi, good evening. My name is Melissa. I am the Parent Resource Specialist for the Autism Society, and I'm excited to be here this evening.
And Melissa and I have been doing a newly diagnosed series. So this is kind of the last series, right, Melissa?
Yes.
Of the 6-week, 7-week series. And I thought, what a better way of not doing this series than letting especially our newly diagnosed families hear from the experts. And we've opened it up to everybody. So I'm sure we'll get a little bit of everything. Tonight, we are joined by one of our board members and our chair of our panel of advisor, Vanessa Gill, who will be facilitating tonight, and CJ Wright. Is that your last name, CJ? I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Who is new to us tonight, who's been gracious enough to share his experience, and Tiffany Barron. Did I say that right?
No, Baron.
Barron, I always say it wrong. And Tiffany's been doing this for oh my gosh, 10 years at least.
Yeah.
Always great to hear from everybody. So we do have an interpreter on if you guys need Spanish interpretation. Melissa and I are going to kind of fade out and let the real stars shine here. They do have some questions that they'll be going through. And then towards the end, we'll be taking questions. So if you have any questions, either put them in Q&A or put them in chat, and we'll save them for later and see how it goes. So with that, thank you all so much. I appreciate each one of you being here and sharing your experiences, and I will turn it over to Vanessa.
Cool. Hey y'all, it's really good to be here, and CJ and Tiffany especially, thank you both for being on here to answer some questions. So maybe we can, I'll ask you, and maybe we'll just do a random order. I'll just have, like, if you have an answer for it, we can just kind of continue through. And if you don't have an answer for it, you can just be like, I don't want to answer this one, and that's totally fine too. And I will answer last on each one if that works. Okay, so my first question to warm everybody up is, do you prefer the term person with autism or autistic person? And either of you can go first.
To be honest, either one suits me just fine.
Okay, cool.
Naming it.
Oh, you're still going?
I
What?
just finished.
Oh, okay. I prefer, it really doesn't matter to me, but I do prefer autistic person.
Awesome. Thanks both. Yeah, and I think for me as well, I usually prefer autistic person. And let me know if you, Tiffany and CJ, agree with this, but I think for me, it's important to be an autistic person because this may not be true for everyone on the spectrum, but for me, being autistic is part of my identity, rather than something that I just kind of like have next to me, you know? And so being called an autistic person is typically what I prefer. But yeah, any other thoughts? Okay.
Not much.
Cool. All right, so we'll continue to the second question. So the second one is, what does sensory overload feel like? Does anyone have thoughts?
Anxiety.
Yeah.
For me, it feels like you're all over the place.
I feel that. Yeah, I definitely feel both of those things. I think that for me, in my experience, sensory overload feels just, it almost feels like my brain is a city, and then you're in the brains of every person in that city, and then it just gets too loud and it almost hurts. That's kind of how it feels for me. Like it gets to a point where any type of stimuli starts to almost feel painful, and you just like, you can't get out of certain cycles of thoughts. Yeah, that's how it feels for me. I also, if I can screen share, I have like an illustration or an animation of how it feels that might also work too. If people are curious, that's from our video game series that we make for autistic youth. But yeah, that is usually what it feels like. Anyone have additional comments?
For me, I just feel like shutting off the world and just listening to my music.
Totally.
Usually, and also I get anxious and everything.
Yeah,
I just feel like music helps me just shut it off.
I do the same thing actually. It's like music, and then I just like, I kind of try to just deprive myself of everything else, and that's either like being in water or it's being just like in my bed and just like headphones on. That's usually how I de-stress. Actually, do either of you have different ways that you, besides what you just said, Tiffany, that you cope with sensory overload? That might be really good to talk about too.
Well, for me, I sit down and chill for a bit. Go for a bit. Yeah. but I do listen to music sometimes. Soothing music, not the exciting ones. That obviously gets me excited.
I'm the opposite. I usually, I guess you would say the music I listen to, it's extreme for most people. So I listen to all types of music, but my preference is going towards like death metal, thrash metal, and like goth music, which metal might not be relaxing to people at all. So
Yeah.
it's not smoothing, it's exciting.
That makes
So that
sense.
just might seem weird for people, especially if you're having a meltdown and you're like, oh, no, I'll just listen to some metal.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I would love for you to kind of, because I think that sometimes I played like exciting music when I'm overstimulated. And I think that some people are confused when it comes to that because they're like, well, don't you want calm when you're overstimulated? And for me, it's usually that like it's not so much about what makes me feel, typically soothing music. It's about sound that I enjoy and that I can control. And I think the control is the thing that makes a difference.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Yeah. So sometimes I guess that's another thing for the audience is like, sometimes I think that people's ways all over the spectrum can be very different with coping. And it may not at first seem like it's, typical sorts of calm kind of Zen coping, but that doesn't mean that it's not good coping. Like,
Yeah, especially when I'm trying to cope, I don't want to listen to something I don't usually listen to because then that doesn't put me in the zone at all.
That makes sense.
It has to be something I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I think that's key. Cool. Thank you. Awesome. And then question number 3, do y'all find it difficult to form friendships?
Not really.
Yes and no. I think most of it is my own worst enemy because I get anxiety, social anxiety and stuff, and then sometimes I just get shy from talking to people too. I'm trying to work on it, but I am friendly to people and stuff. It's just I tend to shut myself off from people.
Yeah, I feel that.
Because of past experiences.
Oh yeah, go for it, Tiffany, if you have any more.
Oh, when I was younger, I was teased. So when I try and think about making friends, I'm always like nervous that my quirks are just gonna scare people.
Yeah, I feel that. I think for me, I was definitely in a similar position with that, is that I was teased and bullied when I was younger, and I had a hard time. I think those were thoughts that I carried into my adulthood of like, I'm annoying, or I'm not good enough, or no one wants to be my friend, even though they're not true, there's still stories that stick with you because of that bullying. And I think that over time, I've been able to find people and slowly build relationships to where I now realize that that's not true. But I think sometimes, just like you, Tiffany, it does stop me a little bit, or at least slows me down.
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting better, like realizing, okay, this is the past. This is past. I gotta move on, be more outgoing, talk to people. And if they don't want to be friends with you, I mean, I haven't really had that problem. I just don't, how the world is nowadays. Everything's more online based, and I have more friends online than in person. It just seems like the world is more geared towards online spaces, like community spaces, than going offline. I mean, I'm trying to find offline spaces too, community spaces. But I'm definitely a lot more open and talkative.
Yeah, I think it's a process for everyone. And I think that's really good. Cool. All right, I'm gonna go to the next one. And I guess this connects a little bit to the last question, but were either of you socially isolated by classmates back in school?
Yeah, definitely,
Well,
yes.
for me, yes, yes and no. Oh, I do tend to make friends for time to time.
Mhm.
And that was in college. But in previous schools, sometimes I do isolate myself. Probably a bit. Probably a bit.
Cool. And then I guess, sorry, I have a follow-up question for you, CJ. Is there anything that helped you as you went to college? Like, what was it college that you were able to kind of feel a little bit less isolated? If you have any ideas.
Well, I interacted with people through jokes I tell. Sometimes get interested in what they're talking about, like what's the new movies, what's the new memes, what's the new news, all that jazz.
So like mutual interests.
Yeah.
I second that too. It's like I seem like I have a few close friends that I keep very dearly, and then I have a lot of acquaintances I know, or people I've met through school or something, or class or communities and stuff. I haven't really necessarily close relationships, except for a few people.
Yeah, I think I was similar growing up, like in middle school and high school especially. There was all the bullying going on, and then I had I like to go I had friendships like in order to survive in a way. Like you have a couple of close friendships, and I think for me looking back, I'm realizing that like a lot of the time it's pretty normal for a lot of people to feel isolated or to feel different in that time, just because you're not a lot of the time it's not cool to be interested in stuff in high school and middle school, and so all your interests, like everyone can make fun of them, and so you're kind of taught to keep them in. But I think that as you hit older in high school or in college, it starts to become a cooler thing again. Or if you go to online friends or to groups that are kind of outside of school, like I think that for anyone that might be struggling with this right now, it's this idea that like your people are out there, like your friends that are going to like you and that you're going to like are out there. They just may not be at school, or they just may not be at like that age of maturity.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, do you all have any other thoughts on that?
Not really.
Okay. All right, let's see. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about routine. So when your routine changes suddenly, do you get thrown off by it, even if it's like a minor change?
Only if I'm tired. Honestly, I get bored of routine. But like if I'm exhausted and tired and stuff, I don't like to be like messed up, like told to do something when I'm exhausted or tired. More then I'm more annoyed.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. Go on
It's
ahead.
okay.
For me, only when I'm suddenly surprised. But if I do get a sudden routine, I have to be able to adapt up to the situation that I'm dealt with.
Yeah, that makes sense. And has adapting to the situation that you're kind of dealt with, has that gotten easier over time?
A little bit. Sometimes it gets hard, sometimes it gets a little easy. What matters is if I get through it.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel. So I have ADHD and I have autism and ADHD. And
Whoa,
so
just
it's,
like me.
yeah. So I feel like, it's like on one side, my autistic brain needs the routine to thrive. But on the other side, my ADHD brain gets really bored of routine. So I think it's a constant balance and, being able to have a general routine, but being able to be flexible about changing things within it. So like, for example, I have to have I usually have to have like the same kind of breakfast every single morning, and I will get irritated if the right ingredients are not in my house at the time, because it's like, no, this is what I eat, this is when I eat it and what goes on. But I think I've learned to be a little more flexible of like, okay, here are some alternative breakfasts that I could have if those ingredients are not in the house, and I will still be okay. And I think having those alternatives kind of like prepared as much as you can helps. And I think like with changes in routine, what's helped for me, because I do get annoyed, with changes in routine, like I have like a list of like backup things that I can do to calm down, or that I can do, like if I have a meeting and it gets canceled, I have like a list of alternative things that I can do. Or if like I have events that come up, I make sure I can find a time in my day where I can just like go and retreat and kind of recover from it all. Do you all have any tips for dealing with that change in routine?
Music. Just listen to music.
Stay calm, and tell yourself to you can get through this.
Yep. Those are both very key. Cool. All right. And then, okay. Interesting question. So do you all feel yourself ever getting stuck on certain thoughts or behaviors and just being unable to let go of them?
Realizing that a lot of it is my fault, mindset and stuff, especially when I became depressed and I had really bad coping skills. It took me going to a therapist, and it took me getting a pet to change my mindset and stuff. And realizing, oh, I made a lot of like, maybe my mind was not really the best judgment in the past 5 years. And then also, let's see, realizing that me getting friends, getting what I want, jobs are just not going to land on my feet. I need to find them. Like, I need to be active, not just like passively just things waiting just to fall in my lap.
For me, it's kind of the same, but with an addition. There may be a lot of things that can distract you, but always keep in mind on the most important things. Distractions are everywhere. Where you can't get distracted all the time, but if you focus on what you need to do, you'll overcome any obstacle you encounter. For me, that's my realization.
Yeah, just get through it. I
Yeah,
feel like we need to write down your
I feel
quote
like I need
somewhere.
to be more active. 2020 was going to be an opportunity, but then COVID happened.
Yep.
Yeah, I was burned out in school and I had to take a break.
Totally. That makes sense. Yeah, I feel
Ended up
that.
being
I
longer.
feel both. Oh, sorry, what were you saying, Tiffany?
No, I said it ended up being longer because of COVID.
Yeah. Very long, and I'm sure we all know how long that has been. yeah, I mean, I feel what both of you are saying, and these are really good points. And I think that I don't have too much to add. Like I guess as an example of those points, and like, you know, if you're a parent, or if you're a parent, or if you're an autistic person and you're not sure if you're like getting into these loops, because I think for me at least, when I get into like these negative thought loops, which is what I call them, when I get into these negative thoughts, sometimes I don't know I'm doing it. And I'm just like pacing back and forth and like trying to just like flip through tabs in my brain. And I don't realize I'm actually doing that. So
Don't beat yourself up. It took me like 10 years to realize.
Me too. It's taken me so long. And I think that one thing that has been super helpful to me is that when I'm not in that state, like thinking really deeply about like, what does my body feel like when I'm having those negative thoughts? Like, does your head feel stuffy? Is your heart racing more? You know, all that stuff. Like, what does your body feel like when you're in those kind of modes, and how can you identify that? And it's good to do that, because then when your body feels like that again, you can be like, oh, I'm having negative thoughts. That's what this feels like. And I think once you realize that you are having negative thoughts, and once you realize that those thoughts are not facts, they are just, you know, your brain doing its weird thing, you take a lot of the power and control back. And if you pair that with the coping kind of stuff that Tiffany and CJ have both spoken about, if you compare that with coping, it'll make things a lot better. But I really think it's about like identifying what those negative thoughts are, and identifying what it feels like to have those thoughts, so that you can catch them before they get bad. But yeah, does anyone else have things to add?
I would say that when your mind is thinking about over thing, I would say my mind is passive, you know. And then when I try to do it on something else, maybe I might feel anxious, or maybe I might feel excitedly anxious.
Yeah, I feel that too. Okay, I'm gonna move forward to the next question. Let's see. Okay, when you were younger, did you have tantrums or outbursts past the age that was, you know, socially acceptable?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I was a mischievous little kid and a bit spoiled.
Me and my dad did not get along, and I would get angry at him and just curse him out and stuff. Now I'm kind of just like, I stay quiet, even though he's still he gets on my nerves, but I realize it's better just to stay quiet than do anything. Because then I look bad for having an outburst.
Yeah, I think for me, before I knew that my sensory overloads were like sensory overloads, I just, you know, I think that now that I'm able to understand, because I think that a lot of my sensory overload issues are made worse and like turn into meltdowns when I also have like negative thoughts and anxiety paired with them. That's when it's at its worst. And so when I was younger and I didn't know that sensory stuff affected me. I was diagnosed at 14. So like for a lot of my life, I didn't know that, you know, I can't handle a lot of people. I can't handle lots of like sounds going on at once. And so for a long time, I would have a lot of different outbursts and just a lot of meltdowns because I didn't realize how much of an impact the environment was having on me and how much was causing me anxiety. But as I learned to realize like what my limits were and like, hey, before I go to this big conference or this big party, I have to be driving my own car there. So I have an escape route, or there has to be a quiet room that I can escape to if I need to go to it. You know, now that I know my limits and I know what accommodations I need, I don't have those outbursts anymore, which helps a lot. yeah, are there any ways that you all have dealt and been able to kind of like get out of those outbursts or those meltdowns?
Listening to music, just going away. Listen to
Took
music
me a
or
while.
go away from the situation for a minute or two.
Took me a while,
Yeah.
but eventually I managed to get through it and change into a completely different person. Somewhat. There's still the silliness inside of me, but still man, it's change and do what I needed to do.
Awesome. Cool. All right, I'm gonna go to our next question. Oh, this is a really interesting question. So have you all made friends with autistic adults more quickly or easily than you make friends with neurotypical people, or is it the same? How do you all feel about that?
Some of my closest friends I've been friends with for over a decade, they're autistic themselves. I mean, obviously we don't dress the same and stuff. Kind of have the same interests in music though, and we have our own interests and different, but we're all good friends and stuff. And also, but the difference between like, but we're honest with each other. But the thing I noticed between neurotypical people and like people who are neurodivergent or even autistic, I've noticed neurotypical people, I've noticed that they're a lot more flaky.
I feel that.
Yeah. They're not really honest, like, or they keep things hidden until they're like upset.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah. Sometimes it's really hard to tell what they're thinking. I've noticed like they forget about stuff easily.
I feel
Any of you notice that?
I do.
They forget about conversations.
How about you, CJ?
Well, when I was still a young child, I met a few friends like me. Some I had a long friendship with. As for my adulthood, I met a few, and we kind of get along nicely. They still contact me from time to time, but we're still good friends nonetheless.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Yeah, I think in my experiences with and I don't know, I'm curious to see if you all have found this, but I have neurodivergent friends, and I have especially friends who think they're neurotypical for other lives. And then I have like this radar, and I'm like, me being autistic, I'll be like, I think you have ADHD. Like, I'm not a licensed professional, but you probably have it. And then lo and behold, a few like months later, they're like, oh yeah, it turns out I have autism and ADHD. And I'm like, got it. But I have that a lot. And then I think another thing that I've seen between neurotypical and neurodivergent friends is that with my neurodivergent friends, I find that I get a lot less drained. Because I think that in my experience with neurodivergent friends, it's not necessarily easier to make them, because I feel like it's harder to find them. But I feel like with neurodivergent friends, it's like, in some way, there's some sort of shared understanding and I don't feel as judged. And so I feel like I can let my guard down, and that's a lot less draining than when I'm with neurotypical.
That's true. I find that you have to act differently around neurotypical people. Like,
Yeah, a
you
little
have to
bit.
put a fence up until they're more comfortable with you. And then it's always interesting when they start noticing like the quirks and stuff. Like, there's only so much you can mask before they can start noticing.
Yep, that's how I feel too. Okay, cool. And then I have one last question, and then we'll see if folks in the webinar have questions. I think I see a couple. But yeah, so last question officially from this thing, from this panel is, in what ways might your experience as an autistic person of color differ from those of white autistic folks?
I feel like more media is based on like white autistic people, especially romance shows or romance documentary. I've noticed a pattern that they're all white. I've noticed most of them. Also television shows, all the characters mostly white, and like advocates are mostly white. I just feel like a lot of it's based on more white experiences. And also I have to worry about like my symptoms showing that maybe people might think it's weird, and then I might get the cops calling me. I've never had that happen to me at all and stuff, but yeah, but that thing is always in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh, what if I'm in a situation that's not necessarily like, how do I interact with the cops? I know how to do it, but like, I'm nervous something goes wrong.
Yeah, that's real.
For me, it's kind of the same thing. You mostly see people of autism more associated with white people, but I feel like it's in people of color with autism should get represented.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm also coming into this conversation. So I always feel like I have to explain this. So I'm Mexican American, and I clearly like have light skin, passing privilege, all that. But I think like I agree with a lot of that. I think there's a lot of white males especially that are depicted in television shows, and that for me, that's what I based my entire like that's what when I got my diagnosis, that's what I had in terms of stereotypes, in terms of like my representation. And I mean, you all know what they are. Like, it's always like this, like cold, calculating, robotic white guy who like solves mysteries or is a doctor or something, you know, like something similar to that. And it's just like, I, for a while, tried to fit myself into that mold until, you know, it wasn't believable, because I didn't look like or think like that type of person, and it wasn't working for me. But that's what I had, and that's what was there. And it wasn't fun. It kind of sucked. Yeah, and I think coming from Latino culture too, I think in Latino culture, like I had a pretty supportive, like I have a pretty supportive like core family that's into mental health, but I think that in a lot of Latino culture, from what I've seen, like there are a lot of barriers when it comes to mental health, and when it comes to, you know, stereotypes of autism. And so I've also seen that too. And I think that they're, you know, it's all about like education and bringing in more resources to help communities of color be better represented in terms of autism, and also just like have a better understanding of like the intersectionality and the different forms it can take.
Can I add something too? Like,
Totally.
oh no, after you were done, it was kind of related.
I'm done.
Oh, okay. So like, I remember when I was in class once when I said I had ADHD, and some guys like, no, I thought only boys get ADHD. Like, people tend to think that hyperactivity is a male thing, and that's not true at all. So it's like there's still the stereotype that, you know, autism is a white male thing, or hyperactivity is a boy thing and stuff. It just seems like a lot of neurodivergent like diagnosis, they're all almost all stereotyped with male, except for maybe like bipolar or what's the other one? Personality disorders.
Oh yeah, like,
maybe?
yeah.
That might be seen as female or anxiety. But
Yeah. And I think that's so common. I think every other neurodivergent woman I've ever talked to, almost everyone, like including myself, like so many times it has been that we've had to go to multiple psychiatrists, or that you get diagnosed with depression or anxiety or PTSD first, and then they'll say like, oh, you have friends, oh, you know, you get good grades or anything, or you don't show the typical signs of ADHD or autism. And like for me, it took 4 psychiatrists. I was misdiagnosed, I was mismedicated with depression, and that wasn't good either. Like, and you know, I think that there is a lot of work, it seems, that needs to be done in the healthcare community. I think it's getting better. But I think there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of realizing that women also can be autistic and can have ADHD. It just may manifest in a different way.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyone have, I guess we'll go into the Q&A, but does anyone have any closing thoughts or like things they want to say before we answer everyone else's questions?
Not really.
Okay. All right, let's look at the questions. Okay. All right. So I think this is from Nicole. It's what can families do to help or prevent ahead of time, and what is not helpful? And I think that has to do with sensory overload. Please correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. Yes. Okay. So what can be done to prevent sensory overload, or to help with it, from your experience?
Maybe asking if it's happening, because I can't really tell when it's gonna happen. It usually just happens.
Yeah.
Same here. Also, if you know they have a sensory overload, try to remind them what's around them.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I think from my experience, just preparing for anything. So I think that, you know, bringing headphones and earplugs, bringing snacks. Like if I have something to chew on, or like some sensory activity that I can do to kind of focus or like kind of direct me away from something, like snacks, like that's also great. Usually sensory overload is worse even when you're hungry or thirsty too. So that's always good. I also think that making a routine of like some kind of self-care that you or your child enjoy, like for me, it's like taking baths and playing video games. Like
Same
if
here.
it's like if we're listening to music too, like if you
Yeah.
can have a routine for them to be able to do that, like before and also after a stressful event, or after event you feel like they might be overwhelmed by, that's super important, just to allow kind of that buffer time. And I
Also, talking to pets also helps.
talking to pets also helps. Yes,
I have a lizard, so sometimes I'll just pet him. He'll just sit on my shoulders, or he'll sit in my lap.
Oh, that's so cute.
He's like a scaly puppy.
I love it. I would also say like having sensory jewelry or toys helps. So I don't have it on me, but usually I have a spinner ring. You can get them on Amazon, and I'll like spin that when I'm in a crowd or something, when I'm anxious. Also just knowing that there are escape routes is really helpful. So like just knowing that I can take my mom's keys and go to her car if I need to be alone, or just knowing that there's like a quiet room or an outdoor space that I can go to, and knowing that it's there, even if I might not need to use it. Just if you'll be able to prepare and be like, okay, there's an outdoor space here. Okay, there's a quiet room or area that they can go to if they need it. Like, just knowing I have it is also very helpful. Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
Mm-mm.
Well, you can play video games to help. Just don't play them too much. Otherwise, you might become heavily addicted.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say have a lot of different variety of stuff that helps.
Yes, for sure. I agree. I
Because there
think
might be situations where you can't use one thing, or you, like my lizard, I can't take him everywhere. I can't just, he's a home pet. So my only options is to just walk away for a little bit, or listen to music for a little bit,
Mhm.
or just deal with it until like I get home.
Yeah, exactly. Taking breaks. Okay, we have another question. Our 22-year-old grandson constantly grabs his ears. We wonder if it's due to overload or habit. Is it or both? I guess I'll say, like, I'm not a medical professional. It may be a form of stimming. I don't know. What do you all think?
I
I
don't do
think it's
that.
kind of a bit
So
of both. Bit of
yeah,
both, to
and
be honest.
probably might be both.
Yeah.
So,
And I think if it makes him feel calm after, like, I don't think that's a problem. Like, you could divert it into a different thing, but if it's something that makes them feel calm and helps them regulate, like, I think it's okay. It's good. And it seems like it's about, yeah, like having some sort of like control or action to habitually do to have some sort of agency in a stressful situation or something overwhelming. Yeah. Okay, I'm just looking through the questions in the chat. Ooh, how do you stay on task and not lose focus? My eternal quest.
That
How
I'm
about you all?
still trying to beat that. I'm still trying to do that, Even if I take medication, I still have that issue. Nothing fixes it. That's why it's taking me so long in college too. And also didn't help I change my major. But yeah, I have to only take maybe like 2 or 3 classes per semester because I lose focus easily. And I just get up, do something else. I just get so distracted easily. And like every time I try, everything I try to do, not have stimuli, I find how to find stimuli, even if you take it away.
for me, it was hard for me to focus, though sometimes I didn't show. Most of the time, I didn't show it. Oh, it's. I typically focus on what's right in front of me, what I need to write down, what I need to learn. And if there's something that actually does try to distract me, at least try to block it out, at least. But sometimes I don't get much notes, so I get help by having a note taker come by. Perfect for helping me write out what I missed.
That's awesome. Cool. And I guess I have another thing. So it was loud, but this is like one of my best friends. It's an egg timer, and it's important that it's a physical object. So for me, I have this on my desk all the time. And when I really, really have trouble focusing, I set like 10 minutes on this timer. And the thing that the thing that makes this differ from like your phone or computer timer is that it's a real thing, and it also like makes a ticking sound, and that like repetition is really good for my brain, and it keeps it on track. And so for me, if I have a really hard time starting stuff that I'm procrastinating on, I will set this for 10 minutes and I'm like, I just got to sit down and do this for 10 minutes. If I can't do this after this timer goes off after 10 minutes, I can go take a break. But if not, usually what happens is once you get started on it, that's the hardest part. So once you get to those 10 minutes, a lot of the time you're like, ooh, I got those dopamine hits. I got like, I'm doing this. I'm going to keep going. And usually it'll go over a little bit. But that's what I found is helpful is like small intervals and timers is good.
Same for me for timers, only I
Yeah.
use multiple of them. One for my phone
Yep.
and the other on my iPad using right now.
Totally.
I should try those out.
It helps. I think it's good.
I've tried everything, almost everything, and nothing's worked.
I would try
Or
the
just
timer.
write reminders.
Also playing the same song on repeat while you're doing work is also very helpful because it helps you get in the zone, and it hits some kind of autistic thing in your brain. You're like, yeah.
I do repeat songs. I do
Yeah.
do that.
Totally. Okay, awesome. So do any of you have siblings, and are you close to them?
Oh, yeah.
Probably as I got older, probably a little more closer. But I think this only happened after he got married.
Hmm.
Maybe because he got married, maybe he feels like he needs to be more in contact with me. And it also helps he lives in the same city now as me. Let's see, but that sibling actually did not actually care about me. He was kind of embarrassed about me growing up, so we weren't close. I mean, we're not close even today, but at least he tolerates me and he doesn't mind being around me. That's an improvement compared to when we were younger.
As for me, my oldest sibling, let's just say, I'd say half the time we didn't get along, but we still reminded ourselves that we're still siblings. As for the younger and step siblings, well, one is a step sibling, the other is my younger sibling.
Mm-hmm.
We actually get along pretty well. Oh, especially the younger sibling. Try guiding her on the right path, teaching her. I even try to have fun with her.
Oh, cool. Awesome. I have one sibling. I have a younger sister. She's 3 years younger. And we're close. Like, I would say our roles have transferred throughout time. Like, I think when we were younger, she's always been, she's neurotypical. So she's always been very, very good with people, like very socially in tune. And so she used to be like my social translator and my protector, even though she was my tiny little sister. So like, she'd protect me from like sarcasm and bullying a lot of the time because we would go to the same school at times. And like, she'd be like, hey, that girl's being sarcastic to you. Like, here's what you say back. And she'd help me communicate a lot better. And I think we've been through a lot together and we're closer now, but I think that, it is also hard because I know that there might be some kind of difference with, I think with like our parents and with their families, I know that for her, it was probably hard because I did, as a neurodivergent person, I did need a lot more attention and guidance from my parents. And so I think that's one thing to watch for is that like, if you have a neurodivergent child, they are of course going to take like a lot of time and attention. And so it's really difficult to make that balance between, if you have neurotypical and neurodivergent kids. But I think overall, like, we're close, we love each other, we help each other through stuff. And overall it's good. And then I think we only have time for 1 or 2 questions left. But how did you all handle bullying? I didn't.
When I was at the worst bullying, like in middle school, I just stayed in the library and read books.
Yeah.
For me, let's just say some of it could have gone better. But my method, I at least try avoiding them, ignoring them.
Yeah, just ignore them.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think that for me, I don't know if it was the same for you all, but like, and it's, I think especially Tiffany, I want to know with you, because I think like, with relationships between girls, especially at those younger ages, like there can be a lot of entrance of like sarcasm and like being passive aggressive and stuff, unfortunately.
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah, or you know,
I
and
remember
like
in high school, I accidentally flipped the pen and some random girls in class started being really very mean,
I know, and
like
it's really
passive aggressive comments.
Yeah. And like, I think for me, honestly, through a lot of middle and high school, I didn't even like, they went right over my head. I didn't know that I was being bullied for a really long time. And so I didn't deal with it because I didn't realize I was being bullied. Because I just did not understand the social cues of it. And for me, one thing that is important to understand and important to like prep your kids for, because sometimes that will happen. Like sometimes your kids will not know that they are being bullied like me, and but there will be a time when they might realize that. And for me, that came like years later, and realizing that like a lot of the people I called my friends were not actually my friends. They were actually bullying me that one time or that million times. And so I think that like preparing your kids for that is really important, and being like, hey, don't be mad or annoyed at your past self, like have compassion for that person, and you know, realize that like the past is the past, and as terrible as bullying is, like it is another experience that, you know, you went through, but you're still here today. And I think it's just important to keep checking in with your kid, and to keep like, my mom told, for example, like my mom told me when I was being bullied because she saw it, and I would ignore it. And like, your kids might do that, and they will, and it just means like being there for them if at a point they do realize that they're being bullied, and helping them realize that like they're still an awesome person that is deserving of love and friendship.
Yeah.
Do you all have more to add?
Let's see. I would say that growing up though, you kind of have to realize not every girl is gonna be your friend or something, or
Yeah.
bit of that. You kind of have to notice, like you said, the passive aggressiveness and like people acting like nice, but they're not really nice at all.
Yep. And like accepting that not everyone is for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like you don't have to please everyone, and you don't have to be for everyone. I think that's also very important. Cool. And then I don't think there are any other questions. We did answer the 22-year-old grandson grabbing his ears already. So I think that's it, just because that was posted again. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, I guess the last question, how do you get a person to not dwell on everything? I would say if they're dwelling on everything, it may be time for like therapy.
Yeah, you might need a therapist. Good coping skills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That might be a symptom, like not a medical professional, but that might be a symptom like leading to depression, just from my experience,
And anxiety, yeah.
or like anxiety or something. Yeah, they need a therapist.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. Cool. Well, thank you. Thank you both so much for all your answers.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm really glad I was able to host this.
You guys are awesome, and I wish we were in person because everybody would be giving you a standing ovation. So this is absolutely, I always learn something. So thank you guys for your willingness to share your experience. I'm looking, yes, we will be posting this up on our website and sending it out tomorrow. So we'll put that out via email. It'll probably be tomorrow afternoon, but thank you all, Vanessa, CJ, Tiffany, you guys are my heroes, and I just appreciate all the work you do for our autism community. So thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Good night to everybody, and we'll be sending this out tomorrow. And as usual, email us if you have any questions, and stay safe. Hope to see you at the Hero Walk on Sunday. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Right?
Bye.
See y'all later.
See ya.